Long-haul truckers, what's the creepiest / most paranormal thing you've seen on the road at night? Maybe a bit off the mark, but it still scared the crap out of me. I was headed west on I-76 here in Denver, just cruising along at about 70 miles per hour. Out of nowhere, I saw a massive, almost solid cloud of what looked to be dirt coming at me. I'd say it was at least 20 feet wide and 10 feet tall. I scanned ahead of me but couldn't see any vehicle it could have came from. With nowhere to go, I slowed down and took the hit, hoping there wasn't anything big enough in there to come through the windshield or jack up my truck owner/operator. It was pretty loud as I smashed through it. The instant it hit, I knew it wasn't dirt though. I immediately hit the washers because I couldn't see a damn thing through all of the carnage. My windshield was painted with guts. Turns out it was bees, freaking huge bees that sounded like rocks when they hit. I can't even imagine seeing that swarm if I was walking. They would kill the crap out of anything in their path. Hi, I'd like to buy this movie plot from you. This is my father's story, and he wasn't a long-haul trucker but rather a 18-year-old gas station attendant in the late 70s, and without a certain long-haul trucker I probably wouldn't be here. The gas station was 24 hours and my dad was the only one working the night shift, 11 to 7 I think. A guy comes in and just gives him the creeps. Seems sketchy. He was wearing tight jacket/pants and you could tell he had something in his pants under the jacket. It was during the summer and was warm, so why is he wearing a jacket to begin with? It was later confirmed he was on drugs. A lot of truck drivers use this station as it was the only one open 24 hours for a long stretch of the highway. They also had a big lot where they let truckers park and sleep or take a break. On this night at this time it was just my dad, sketchy dude, and one trucker in there he kinda knew, as in, came in frequent enough to be conversational, and asked if he'd stay in the station and hang out until sketchy dude left. Well, after looking at the stock shelves for several minutes while sneaking peeks at my dad behind the counter, the sketchy guy eventually looked fed up and got into his blue car and sped off. Cool trucker guy hung out with my dad a little longer until another couple of guys came in to use the booths. They had to eat a sandwich. I should also point out this was pretty middle of nowhere rural southeast United States in the 1970s. CB and landline was it. My dad only had a landline in the store. Dad did not have any protection or weapon of any kind. So the hours pass and my dad had shaken off the paranoia when all of a sudden this truck driver guy in a car comes hauling ass into the lot, jumps out, and sprints into the store hollering he needs a phone. He didn't have a CB nor did he see a phone at the other station. He also wasn't familiar with the area and my dad's station was the first place he found. Calls 911 to report that he had walked in on a gas station 40 miles back, next closest station, to find the attendant shot and dead. No one else around. And the only other piece of information is that a blue car was speeding out of the lot when the trucker pulled in. Apparently they eventually apprehend the guy in the blue car. My dad confirms it was sketchy dude from earlier in the night, and they charge him with murder and armed robbery. To the long-haul trucker who waited around with my dad that night, thanks and hope you're keeping it real. Also worth adding that apparently sketchy guy in blue car was already a bad apple who was either being looked for or on probation or something. He was in the system. Edit: I'm editing this a couple months later, but I recently talked with my dad and he cleared a couple things up. So anything in bold above is edited. It's not much, but there it is. Why do you think he didn't shoot your dad? Obviously the trucker was there, but it seems easy enough to just kill two people if needed. Did you ever find out the creep's motive, or did the trucker have some sort of defense weapon? Not 100% sure, but I'm guessing sketchy guy didn't want a 2-on-1 scenario. Maybe the cool trucker guy was an imposing figure? I've never asked what he looked like. Surely my dad wasn't, as he was a skin and bones teenager with a puffed up fro. He looked like a Q-tip. Maybe sketchy guy actually didn't have murder on his last list but rather wanted the easy stick up and cash grab job? As for what went down in the other gas station, I guess shit hit the fan unfortunately. Maybe the other attendant tried to defend himself? My father didn't have any weapons but I'm guessing some attendants kept one? I was coming back home from a trip from Michigan and I saw these people wearing cult-like robes. One in town, one on a highway, and one in a park, all staring at me. Did you approach the dog park? You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to acknowledge it either. The council would like to see you for re-education purposes. I seem to remember one of our interns sneaking in. She had no end of trouble, what with all the dimensional, temporal travel etc. I'm a truck driver in the UK. Was driving through rural Scotland one night going down a country lane. All of a sudden I start to see flashing lights come through the trees. Lights of all colors flashing through the trees and causing some really freaky looking shadows on the road. I'm not a believer of aliens or anything, but my first thought was UFOs. Safe to say I put my foot down and got out of there. Found out the next day it was rave happening in a field. But at the time it didn't half scare me. What time of year was it? When the haggis first start tumbling off the hill, we have various dancing light rituals. The lights scare them into running the wrong way round the hill and causes them to roll down into the hands of kids waiting to catch their first one/s. Creepiest. Driving I-40 I-30 through Texas and Arkansas, I would see what looked like animals/faces popping out of the bushes, but longer than a glance proved nothing there. They had just paved the highway, and there was hardly any traffic. I was dead tired, it was super dark. Highway hypnosis, I suppose. Paranormal. When I went to local driving, my route ran near an air reserve base in Indiana, so you'd see planes and helicopters pretty often. One night, about 2 a.m., I was headed to pick up another load when I saw a bright green light in the corner of my windshield. It was too low to be an aircraft. It moved pretty slowly, then darted, and I lost sight of it behind some trees I drove by. Typical I saw a UFO shit, but I still think it was just a helicopter or a jet that I saw at the perfect angle that turned after takeoff. The jet pilots have broken the sound barrier over town a couple times in the past, sonic boom, so a jet flying abnormally isn't necessarily out of the realm of possibility. Driving south on I-75 in the winter in Ohio, I witnessed a compact car like a Cobalt or similar get on the on-ramp to merge into I-75 north and lost control. They went sideways, fell at least 6 feet off the ramp and onto the shoulder of the interstate, landing on all four wheels, spun 360 degrees, and then proceeded to merge into traffic like it was fucking nothing. Blew my fucking mind. The CB radio was going fucking nuts for about 5 minutes. Holy shit, WHO else just fucking saw that? Etc. On I-75. That place is a wreck magnet area. I'm not the least bit surprised that happened. Edit. This is now my top comment for some reason. Myself and 2 friends had to drive from Laredo, Texas to Baton Rouge, Louisiana one night in my Ford van. It was about 2 a.m. There is a particularly long and dark section of highway just outside Laredo. No buildings, towns or lights for about 50 miles. I was in the right lane coming up on a truck and pulled out into the left passing lane. As I was slowly overtaking this long truck, my peripheral vision caught a sudden movement of this big truck towards the right shoulder. I saw the truck was swerving to avoid hitting a person dressed in all white face, whose arms were folded across the chest and eyes were closed as they walked across the highway. I swerved to the left and barely missed this ghostly-looking person with my passenger mirror. Can still remember seeing that the eyes were closed. That's how close we came to hitting this person. Laredo TX. You could have stopped right there and I would have agreed on the creepy part. I was listening to a radio station when this trucker called in. He said he saw a lot lizard get out of one truck, douche with a bottle of grape soda, and get into the next truck. Edit. Clarification, a lot lizard is a prostitute that works in a truck stop or rest stop. I'm only an amateur gynecologist, but that seems like a sure way to get a yeast infection. And diabetes. And AIDS. I was 23, my newly married husband and I decided driving team would be a fun adventure after college, rather than jumping into the 9-to-5. I was down in Arizona, on a long stretch of nothing about 4 a.m. when a guy pulled up next to me waving his CB. I never left mine on. Listening to those guys BS was irritating. I turned on my CB and he told me I had a blown tire. I thanked him, figuring I would stop at the next truck stop. He kept harassing me to pull over and check my tire for a good 40 miles. I finally got to a next town and pilot truck stop, got out and checked my truck. No blown tires anywhere. No clue what that guy would have done to me, but so glad I trusted my gut and didn't stop. Not paranormal, but I have plenty of stories as a young woman on the road. My stepdad is a truck driver and I asked him this question and he gave me 3 answers. In Winston-Salem, NC, a guy was masturbating while driving by his truck and my stepdad threw his water bottle at him. Another time he said he was up near Oregon and he was the only one on the freeway at the time since it was around 2 a.m. and something large and pale swooped down a few yards in front of his truck and swooped back up into the tree line. While driving at 70 miles per hour, a tire rolled ahead of him and went across the median, nearly hitting another car. I want to know more about the pale swoopy thing. Edit: if I get one more reply saying owl, I'm gonna fucking lose it. Edit: lost it. Okay, I've been forced to turn off notifications. There was an owl on top of my car. My mother in Florida is asking why she's receiving texts of pictures of owls. I can see defeat. I hope you owl all happy with all y'all lives now. My dad has several stories from hauling logs in Idaho and driving trucks through Utah and Nevada. My favorite is from actually just in his pickup going through Utah. He said there was a light keeping pace with him out in the desert on a moonless night. It kept pace for a minute before it disappeared and his truck turned off. He stopped and turned it on and pulled off at the next diner. The folks in the diner called it a common occurrence. The creepiest is when he was hauling logs in Idaho and was coming down from near Coeur d'Alene area during a snowy winter night. He was putting on chains before heading down steep grade and said all of the hair stood up on his body. It felt like there was something watching him. Halfway down the switchbacks he saw a large figure standing on a 20-foot tall embankment. As he got closer it jumped down and the shoulders were as tall as the cab. In a single bound it leapt down and then leapt over to the other side of the embankment. At the time he thought it was a Sasquatch, now he says it was probably a demon trying to make him crash. He didn't stop to remove the chains until he was well away from the mountain.